We're live. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thrilled today to have Gina Davis with us today. I had a chance to run into you 3 times this year, maybe.
Yeah.
Most recently at SFR, and you had a lovely orange dress on to team up with your folks at PestShare. Gina is an executive and both on the property management side and now on the vendor side of things. So really exciting conversation today because we'll be able to draw from both sides of your experience to talk about your time at obviously at PestShare in the account executive role, previously at Trilogy Investments from a property manager side of things. So that's always an interesting conversation to dig into as to what that transition feels like, looks like, because there are people that are going back and forth all the time. It's very interesting to see how that works out. And for everyone today, as we always talk about getting to hell yes, the conversation around getting to hell yes is covers off both internal and external conversations. And it's about driving change. And the key thing about hell yes customers, hell yes change agents, is that we're constantly seeking to figure out what changes can we, I'll say, absorb or capture that people are seeking to change. So rather than putting our ideas or our kind of our objectives on people, how can we create urgency? How can we capture their urgency for their problems? And how can we turn that into, obviously a transaction? And then ultimately from not everybody is looking to solve a problem all the time. How do we find the people who are seeking to solve problems? What are their objections? What are they considering? And then how do we get to hell yes? And then ultimately tie it together with kind of some sort of, our experience share in terms of the way we've been learning throughout our life. Because everyone we've had on the show so far, 150 straight, and I think we're gonna have 151 today, are lifelong learners. So we talk about the things we've learned all throughout. This is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is remote maintenance, AI remote maintenance software and inspection software for property management, help you speed up turns, speed up inspections, and speed up maintenance. And folks, if you're listening, love to get your feedback throughout the show. Add any comments or questions, and we'll respond to that in real time. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, after the show is live, obviously any of your comments or feedback is always appreciated in there. And like or subscribe because that makes it easier, helps it easier for people find the show. So Gina, we've been trying to get this together for a long time. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Bueno, podemos hacer este episodio en castellano, pero por la audiencia vamos a ponerlo en inglés. So thrilled to have you, a fellow Hispanic in property management. And a bit about your background. How did you get into this role? And then now with PestShare, what's the problem that you guys solve?
Yeah, of course. And it's a pleasure to be here, Guillermo. I mean, we've had such great conversations, and being at IMN a couple of weeks ago was absolutely amazing to be able to embrace you and give you a big old hug. So
100%.
Yeah, so thank you, obviously, for inviting me. So a little bit about my background is very, very interesting. So about 25 and a half years on the property management side, started, as a leasing agent. Worked every single position in the property management space: leasing agent, assistant manager, property manager, asset manager, regional, VP of property operations, president of property operations. And it was like, okay, what's next? Kind of, I've done everything in the property management space. I transitioned over the HOA management, overseeing the shops with Buckhead, all of their associations there with First Service Residential.
Nice.
And I said, hey, what's that?
Like Buckhead, Atlanta?
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Did that. And I was like, homeowners isn't really my thing. Let me go back to serving the people and what I know best. Went back to the property management side and helped do 3 startups there. So that's kind of what, my passion. I love working with people. I love training. I love being a part of, the property management industry and working with our peers on site and on the vendor side, right? So recently, as a SVP of asset management, I was like, okay, what's next for me, right? So in conversing and putting up my fillers, a couple of more things came up on the operational side, and then some vendor offers came in. And, interesting enough, I went to a meeting and met Scott, who is my current boss, CSO for PestShare, met him at a happy hour. And, you could say it was love at first sight. It was like literally meant to be. So a 10-minute conversation turned into 2 hours that evening. Then I met the rest of the team the next day, and the rest is history. Here I am now, people on the property management side will call it the dark side because you
Right.
literally are on the opposite side. But yeah, I'm now with the vendor side. So super exciting. Very different, but super exciting.
Funny story about that team. So Bob Hansen, one of your team members at PestShare, he went to school with my neighbor.
Oh.
So like we're sitting there in Dallas, Bob and I, and we're texting my neighbor, and he's like, "What is this? Is the smallest, tiniest world ever?" And it can be a small world sometimes. Remarkable the connections. And ironically, my neighbor is a heart surgeon, and like obviously neither Bob nor I are. So in those cases, even further away in terms of like connections. So at PestShare, tell us about PestShare a bit. So so the name, and then what does PestShare solve? Like it's because it brands itself as not as pest control, but what's the problem that PestShare solves, and why is it different?
Yeah. So again, I am very, very new to PestShare, but I will tell you based off of my experience being there a couple of months now, PestShare is an Uber for pest control. So it's pest control services on demand. And, we leave it up to the residents to diagnose what issues they're having in the home. You go online, you submit that after this platform is obviously selected by the on-site property management team or property management owner. They do cover single family as well as multifamily and BTR communities. So they cover all type of residential housing. So basically, the reason why I'm so passionate about what PestShare is because I know there's a need on the property management side. And again, being on that side for 25 years and seeing the needs from every single position in our industry, whether it's the on-site team, a corporate, executive, the owner, investor, or asset manager on the back end, what does that look like? And this is just the perfect fit. The reason why it's getting so much more rave about what's going on is we know on the corporate side of property management, we're trying to cut, wherever we can to save money. What is that? That overwhelms the on-site team, right? So what does PestShare do? It can come in to partner up and support the on-site team and being that direct customer service liaison to connecting all pest issues that they're having on site. So it eliminates that burden for the on-site team. It makes obviously the on-site team look like a rock star because they're getting this. When I tell you the customer service at PestShare is amazing, right. To see the customer service reviews is absolutely insane. And it just speaks for the founders of the company and where the vision is. They want to be that source of like that partnership. And I think that's what's really, really important. But yeah, to sum it all up, it's basically Uber for pest control. We vet all of the vendors that go out to the community. We make sure it's 4.5 stars or higher. So there's just a lot of stuff that we're doing on the back end that really simplifies the process for the resident and the on-site team. And of course, on the back end as an investor, asset manager, et cetera, it just works. It's something that's needed out there. We have pests no matter where you live. Pests don't care about zip code and they don't care about your financial status. They're there and they're not going anywhere. That's for sure.
Yeah. No, without a doubt about it. And especially concentrated in the areas where we have multifamily developments, right? There's no doubt about it. And I think what's interesting is that like, you think about the pest control experience, like the service provider, right? Like the actual person that comes in the van to your space, like they're rarely the complication. It's the fact that I've got pests. That's gross. That's difficult to deal with. And maybe you're doing a turn, then all of a sudden you walk into a unit and you got to deal with it all of a sudden and you didn't know it was there. So there's urgency to it. And either way, there's urgency to it. And then all of a sudden, like it's never the actual person doing the application. It's the whole system in order to get that person there that makes that complicated. And so if we can, kind of like make that system, reimagine that system of something we really don't want to buy, right? Because you wish you didn't have to. And then when you do, it's a good experience. That makes it so much easier because you really just want the problem to go away and to do it, somewhat, I wouldn't say anonymously, but with discretion and have it done effectively, not create a repeat problem. Like when you see some of the before pictures in property management around pests, it can be quite a it's quite a stomach. It can give you a bit of a stomach turning experience, right? And you just kind of like wonder how people can live that way.
Yeah, no, and again, it's just you never know, right? You can pay $5,000-$10,000 in rent and have a pest issue. It's just, again, is it the way people live? Not necessarily. Is it an issue? Absolutely. Can it be corrected? Yes. Like the answer, you know what I mean? So yeah.
So then, is the key problem like in pest control? And I mean, this can be brought up a level like service management, right? Like all services, it's painful to procure it. It's painful. The quality is fragmented. It's very variable. And when you're doing this in a commercial context, like I'd say residential context, but B2B, you have a quality standard you got to deliver on for that resident and for the owner and for the fee manager. And so like, it's very risky to go out there and procure services. And it could be even a plumber or whatever that's kind of not vetted, because you ultimately, that could create more damage than good. And you could, or even worse, more disruptions to the resident. So when you guys think about the problem, is the problem like the actual pest control, like the service procurement? Is that the real gap in the market?
So let's talk about what no one really wants to talk about, and why I'm so passionate about joining PestShare is it's always been, let's pay bottom dollar for the pest control services that we're going to have. Let them come out on this one scheduled day and time. It's an inconvenience for the residents. It's an inconvenience for the management team. As you know, we don't want to say it, but there's nothing worse than having to hustle through the office, pulling keys, making sure the residents' dogs or cats are put up so that, you know, it doesn't affect the pest vendor going in. There's just so many different levels to like what can go wrong on the day of the visit, right? Then you go and you feel you got treated. They so-called sprayed your home, and then you're calling the office again. So, you know, the resident's not satisfied. They're blaming the property manager. It's not the property manager's fault. They're not spraying the solution. So there's just kind of like, let's discuss what the real issue is here. Let's get qualified vendors to go out there and treat what the actual issue is. And listen, everybody on the property management side will tell you they're going in there, they're spending 2 minutes in a unit and they're out. There's no way that they're really analyzing what the true situation is. We would love for that pest control person to come back and say, hey, there's a crack in the wall, the ants are coming in from here, that, you know, give us the problem solving part to what the issue is. And I think that would kind of help. Well, PestShare does that with a 30-day guarantee to resolve the issue. It is what it is. So that's why it's so important for us to have qualified, vetted vendors to make sure that they're really doing their job in what needs to be corrected the first time around. And then what does that do? Great customer service, right? The residents happy, they're leaving positive reviews. You're not getting these nasty pest reviews on your Google reviews or Yelp or apartment ratings. So it's just a win-win when you're using a solid, good vetted vendor.
And do you find like, I mean, is it too, I mean, I don't know offhand if there's something like this for plumbers or HVAC or electrical and all those things, but does something like that exist? Because it feels like this is a service procurement problem, not just that you guys have specialized in pest control. Like, are there other models that are out there that do the same thing?
Yeah, like in my experience of being on site and dealing with, you know, vendors that we do allow on site and what their services offer, there are vetted platforms that are out there. You know, it's almost like being a middleman and brokering a deal. We want to make sure that these are vetted people, that they do have great reviews, that, you know, it would be equivalent to like an Angie's List or something similar. There's some in our industry, you know, we use vetted vendors for each thing, right? So in, I don't know, property management A might have a specific vendor that they qualify and feel that they need to use, and they might not give somebody else the opportunity. So I think when you really think about, you know, vetting a vendor, and it really starts at the top, at the corporate level of, you know, who we're going to allow to come and service our properties, communities, and homes. And
then, and the thing about like pests is that like, it's really kind of, it's a high anxiety moment, I imagine, for the resident.
Right. Because you're like, what did I do wrong? Is it me? It could be a neighbor that has an issue that, you know, that's the whole thing of shared walls, right? In multifamily or townhome living is you never know. So they can, I mean, there's just so many different ways that these issues can occur. And again, in my previous life in property management, you just never know. It might be a brand new build. You're getting ants from outside under the concrete in cracks. So yeah.
So let's chat about that for a bit. So like, given the kind of like right now you're on the vendor side and previously you were on the ops side, like on the management and marketing side of things, doing the selling and buying at the same time. Like, how do you take a look at the problems that people are solving and then begin to figure out, like, let's go from the Trilogy perspective, like when you're over there, like when you're doing internal change to get people to hell yes, what was that like? Like, how did you begin to go out there and begin to, like, let's say, for example, you're the leader you're SVP of property management at Trilogy, and you want to consider a pest control solution. How would you go about actually getting the stakeholders aligned to agree that this is a problem that needs to be solved?
Yeah, well, obviously, being a woman in our industry, sometimes it is a little bit difficult to get a hell yes from all the guys, right? However, it's just being able to speak with confidence and knowing that you've experienced the situation there's no sales to it, right? I live this. This is what it is. This is how we need to correct it. This is the bottom line. But I always go in a little bit deeper. Based on my experience, what does this cost? What does it do to the on-site team? What does it do to the residents? What does it do to the reviews? How does that impact the owners? How does that impact the investors? So I always look at everything from a huge like ecosystem of how does one thing affect all these people that are like the stakeholders in this, right? And it's really educating the on-site team and educating, your investors of like why and what can this cause? Being on the property management side, we've heard absolutely everything. I am always trying to be very proactive instead of reactive, because what does that do? It creates anxiety for absolutely everybody, right? And at the end of the day, Gisha, like, what are they going to do is how are you going to solve this problem? So now you're like last minute trying to figure it out. And I think it's just clear communication and speaking on experience. And if not having factual experience, then at least educate yourself and do the research. So
then it gets to the kind of comment that goes chatting with Tony Souza a few weeks back, and we're talking about like the gap between operations and corporate, right? And so you're in the corporate world before, like corporate function before, and then now are you selling into corporate now, or are you selling to the site level?
So what my position currently is at a higher level, right? We want to close those huge multifamily deals. And I know what ticks, right? I know the pros and cons of why the pest control services that you currently have aren't working or why they are working. So it's almost like I have like, behind the scenes, like
inside baseball.
What you're telling me is not really factual. I've been there, done that kind of thing. And now that's why I think it's so important. Let's talk about what's really going on, right? You might budget $5 a door for pest control services. Fantastic. I can guarantee you probably 80% of the on-site teams can't hit that number by the end of the year. There's going to be one or two nuances that come up that are going to exceed that budget expectation. And you really, really look at it. What does that look like if there's an infestation or bed bugs that need to be treated or appliance replacement? All that ties back to an actual pest control issue. So that's where the dollars are really being spent, not your $5 a door, all in. Where is it being spent?
Right. And so when you're having the conversation so when a company, and it's actually, we're really lucky that you've been in both roles. Like, at which point do you decide that we need to make a change? Because they've had pest control services for years. For sure. And at which point do they go, this isn't working anymore? Like, how does that, what has to happen for a buyer to start seeking alternatives to their pest control solution, their current pest control alternative?
Yeah. So from a visual of an owner's perspective or a higher outside of like the whole business, right, is what's going to make my biggest bang for my buck, right? Heads and beds, making sure we're increasing rents, making sure their assets are fully being taken care of throughout the term of them holding. On a corporate level is what does that look like? Customer service response, our on-site team, the reviews, all that turns into dollar signs, right? If the resident's happy, they stay. We don't have to spend as much on a turn. If the resident's happy, they don't annoy the on-site teams. So it's like a win-win. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's how do you get there, right? It's really educating yourself and saying, is this working for us? And pest control is just a small part of the issues we have, right? You can look at valet trash services. You can look at pest cleaning or pet cleaning services. There's so many other services that are out there that really dictate how your property is functioning, how your home is functioning, how the residents are being treated. Amenity spaces, are they updated and they're clean and clear of debris? There's just so many things out there that you really need to focus on. And the reality of it is how do you get people to really like look at things from a higher, aerial instead of so like, I don't care. It doesn't affect us, because at the end of the day, people are going to read those reviews, and that's going to be a hell yes or a hell no, right?
Well, that's kind of that's a bit of the thing. Like pest control is like something that it's one of those, just one of those things. If I did this first, maybe I didn't have that, but those things, like, just try to figure out, like, the question is really around like what makes pest control rise to priority. Is the case that, and this will lead into how do you find people that are hell yes, right? Like, how does pest control become some, and really, and I think what's interesting, what you guys do is like, how does not just local procurement of pest control, like buying the local, whatever, Pete's Pest Control at the site level, how does that become number one, how does it become a corporate initiative, right? Who has that initiative? Is that marketing? Is it operations? Is it, and then, so one was, how does it get to corporate from the site? Number two is, who is the buyer in that situation? And number three is, why does it become urgent for that buyer that would not normally be buying pest control services?
Yeah.
There's three questions there.
So number one, it varies, right? So you're looking at different aspects from, the property management side, multifamily or single family scattered. So why is the service needed? Obviously, it's an issue. How does
it go from the site to corporate? Because the site level probably procures it all the time conventionally. Then you're making a corporate initiative.
Right. So right now in our industry, it's just part of what it is, right? So you expect this service as a resident. We expect to provide this service as an operator. Okay.
Yeah.
There's different laws, obviously, statewide, and I'm no legal attorney, so I can't give you advice on that. But some people have to have it. It's, it has to be there. And some people leave it up to the residents or the renters to have pest control services. So that really is the corporate office. We're talking about it all the time, right? When we're underwriting these deals, we're putting pest control services in there, whether it's for an amenity area or each individual unit, which is very, very common in our industry, but it's just a given. It's there. Okay.
So then at the end, so that means it falls into is it asset manager or regional manager? Like, who's going to be the buyer now?
Yeah. So I think initially it's always going to be the actual investor, right? You're going into this underwriting a deal knowing that there's going to be an expense for pest control, right? State regulated, right? So when you're coming and you're telling me, hey, do this underwriting for this deal, you're going to see a breakout of a budget of what we're proposing to you and all the fees. And that's going to cover absolutely everything. I mean, even from pool cleaning services to how much we anticipate making in application fees or whatever. And now there's the big conversations around these junk fees. So that's why it gets very on a legal level of whose responsibility does it have to be implemented and how are you getting billed for it?
I think one of the interesting things about this business is that the separation, the number of arms length separation between the site level where it actually occurs, the fee manager that's managing the service, and then the owner that's actually underwriting it with a banker, right? It's like there's four degrees of separation from the actual activity being served and deployed at the site, and the actual person who's maybe one minus the banker, the investor who's underwriting it and having all that detail in there. And so it's not just a miscellaneous expense. It's a planned expense that rolls up all the way up into the underwriting. So that we're not talking about something that is just like something you deal with on an exception. This is something, a planned expense. And so if I can plan for it and include it in my underwriting, then it's like something I can predict around. Okay. And so then, like, I think most people would probably think that pest control is something that is a site level decision, but when you're including it in underwriting, it moves it up to the corporate level decision and ultimately into which then is bound into the PMA that the fee manager is running with. So it's like, it isn't something that is just like, I'm going to, I don't know, like get more toilet seats. Like, it's not a site level PM level question anymore. It's escalated all the way up to the underwriting and the asset manager and the regional manager, and they're budgeting and planning for it. And so all those things are kind of like a little bit more nuanced than how we might think of it in our personal lives.
That's right. Yeah. And think about it. If pest control is just one line item in underwriting and you miss that, imagine how many other things are being missed. And then when you do have this active community and now you're getting ready to get where you need to be for lease up and you're not making these numbers, how does that affect people? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, if there's all these additional fees, oh, by the way, we left this out, there's no way that you're ever going to achieve realistically what you underwrote if you're not adding what the true spend on the properties are.
Very interesting. And so some of the gaps you're going to close at the corporate level is to ensure there's sufficient amount of allocation or budget for that pest control services that you're going to spend anyways. And let's make sure that it's the right number, because now that's kind of, I mean, like it sounds like almost like a trick or a joke, but it's in like, hey, we're going to take your pest control and there's a consultative element to it. I'm talking about the same thing about like with Dave Holland around like restoration services. Like, how do we think about restoration service and how do we elevate that from the person that's feeling the pain to the person that actually controls the budget? Because those are like mutually independent. Like the property manager may not have buying authority over, like they kind of conceptually do because it's a site level thing. My site has pests and yours doesn't, so I'm going to buy pest control. But the buying authority is now moved up out of that PM role into the I'll call it the asset manager, regional manager role, right? That's interesting though, because like it wouldn't feel that way immediately. It wouldn't immediately feel that way.
Right. No. And listen, at the end of the day, there's property managers that are super satisfied with the services that they're getting. And there's some property managers that aren't satisfied with the service they're getting. But guess what? Corporate dictates some of the vendors that they can and cannot use, or those relationships are tied to, bigger things that corporate offices don't discuss either. Is at the end of the day, like, you might be getting your bang for your buck is what you think. But the reality of it is, Gisha, is when you start really looking at that cost spend for anything pest control related at a property level, that affects the bottom line, period. Right. So that's kind of the conversation that really needs to be had, especially, our promises to correct the problem, right? That's what we offer. Our promise is to make this seamless and make the residents have this exceptional customer service experience. And my promise to my peers in the property management field is I want to be a partner. Like, I know what it's like to be on site and have to deal with the nuances of any vendor. Like, it's a lot, and it's the after hours, the 24/7, the holidays. There is like no break whatsoever. Let me tell you something. Jump into the vendor side. My husband tells me all the time, you are like at 6 o'clock, it shuts down. And he says, this is the happiest I've seen you in years. I don't worry about fire, flood, or blood coming on a phone call late at night, right? Or the sleeping with one eye open, just in case. So yeah, I mean, we're here to solve a problem for sure. And we want to make sure that experience is like across the board, on-site team, corporate level, investors, owners, residents. We want everybody to have exceptional customer experience.
So what makes it so frustrating? This kind of goes back to what we were chatting about earlier. What makes the conventional approach so frustrating that it's worth change? Is it price, quality, speed? Like what is it that kind of is the tipping point?
Yeah. So with us, we're able to come out with about 3 business days. Traditionally what you do is you call your office, you're put on a list, and they tell you they'll be here Thursday around 11 o'clock, and it is what it is, right? So if you're at
Yeah.
home working and you're on a call or whatever, and you can't tend to that, or they can't come in at that time, guess what? You got to be put on the list next week. Or
Right.
an emergency services has to be called, and that's an additional fee to the property. So those are kind of like some issues, there. So, I mean, it's by us being able to tend to the residents on time when they need it. Again, on demand, right? It's Uber for
Mhm.
pest control services. You want it, we have a vetted vendor that's in the area. It might happen sooner than expected, but there's not going to be an 11-day gap like traditionally there is.
So are they buying ease to procure, like confidence, reducing risk in terms of my procurement risk, and then speed? Is that really, because it feels to me like pest control will be a speed thing.
Yeah.
Like faster the better.
No one wants to deal with a mouse running around their house, right? It's like, how quick you get out here. So yeah, all of the above, right? The professionalism, being there when you need it on demand, the service and the quality, knowing that there's that guarantee that they're going to fix the problem. Those are things that I think I know I'm very proud of, that PestShare is able to state that that's what we're doing. Where traditionally right now it's some random Joe coming out every Thursday at whatever time, spraying for 2 seconds and leaving, and there's still an issue. So now that created an issue with the resident, an issue with the manager. The manager's telling the regional, hey, this resident's not happy, and sometimes they want to break their lease. These are all like floating dollar signs of like what not to do, right? Yeah.
So then when you get into like enterprise sales for this kind of service, like who would be a competitor? Is it the franchises of Orkin, et cetera? Or is there like, how does someone else come in at that purchasing level for a corporate plan that can work for all the different sites? Like that's a part that's kind of like jamming up my brain right now, is that like, I'm buying for Trilogy, I'm going to have all these different properties, and I need to understand that you have the ability to be able to serve all those properties, speed and quality, because price is going to be this. And how do I buy that if I don't choose PestShare?
Yeah. So it's all in buying power, right? There's some of the big hitters out there in our industry that are just, dedicated to a specific vendor. It is what it is. But again, you're selling a great service, right? Or a service just in general. To be able to stand behind a service that's being provided and solving a problem is where PestShare is really like strong. We're national. We have 3 vetted vendors throughout every single zip code. It's that money back guarantee we stand behind. So I think that's how we're a differentiator from the traditional vendors. Everything else, I can go more in detail. If there's any listeners out there that want a demo, they can call me and we can poke behind the scenes at like why we are as good as we are and why we are the best out there. But there's always going to be the pushback, right? But I want the people to say, hell yeah, we need PestShare or whatever services that, it's important. It's important for them to fully understand. And again, coming from that side, I know where all the skeletons are hid. So I know how to get around a lot of these obstacles that are going to come our way. And I think that's what's really important, is having the open conversations with the corporate people or the investors and even with the vendors, like why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. And then not everyone buys, right? And so like, actually there's 2 questions here. So like, given that you guys are seeking to get into the underwriting side of things, like the underwriting line item and vendor and corporate selected vendor, is there ever a time wall? Like, do they ever have they have to make a decision by a certain point? Like, and I'll give you an example. Like, let's say, for example, you're choosing an HVAC service. Well, you'd want to have that choice made before April or before October, but not in between.
Sure.
Right. You want to have that all set up by then. Is there something that you need to think about? Is there a time wall? Is there a pest season that they got to kind of have this all figured out by, or is it more driven by the underwriting?
No, it's a great question. So A couple of different things, and it's really how you're underwriting the deal and the relationships that you have in the industry, right? Again, when we were underwriting, we would select said property management company to help us and propose a budget on the expected development and what that's going to look like, how many units, what type of build, etc. So them having that understanding, and obviously you're hiring a third party property manager, or if you're managing inside, these are all things that you're looking at is from your perspective, or you have a deal right down the road, what does that budget look like? What were the issues they were having? And that's an underwriting just in general, right? So if I manage 1, 2, 3 communities and you select me to help you guys with a proposed budget for this potential project, it should be as close to, if not on point, to what's being developed, because I just, I manage 3 other deals in the local area. So you should have a true understanding. And that's, thank God we have such great property management companies out there that are able to perform and give these proposed budgets for like what that potential cost could be. So that way your underwriting is as firm and as close to what you anticipate it being when it goes to development, pre-lease, and stabilization.
And things like pests can be something that is like a bit of a wild card if you're not experienced with that specific area.
Right. And I mean, listen, at the end of the day, anything can happen, right? You might, there might be someone clearing a empty lot and all these rodents just come to your area. You never know, but you better believe you better be prepared just in case, because that's going to be really costly. Yep.
What kind of objections do you hear? And maybe, what kind of objections do you normally hear at PestShare?
Yeah. So far, again, newer, had a couple of calls. My peers that have been super supportive and have been very, very good on constructive criticism and feedback. We, in our industry, in the property management industry, we're so fixed on this door fee. I pay $5. You talk to anybody and they'll say, oh, I pay $5 a door, I pay $7 a door, and that's all I'm paying. I call bull on that, because that's not true. We're not, if you have 100 units and you're paying $5 a door, you're not paying $5 a door. Let's go to the nitty gritty of when that person moves out, if they had a roach infestation, what that cost was, if you had to replace carpet, all that stuff. So all that really, really matters at the end of the day. So I think it's important to really uncover the truth about what that true cost is.
Now, going back to your previous life as a buyer on the procurement, on the property management side, like when you're looking at vendors, and how are you assigning your prioritization? Was it circumstantial, or is there kind of themes that you're always seeking to optimize? Like I'll give you an example. Like in the lease up, you're obviously prioritizing leasing, right? Maybe not maintenance, but then you often find, or historically would have found that leasing would have priority over maintenance or operations because of just the cycle that you're in. Like, how would you take a look at the business that you're running? This is, again, in your previous life. And where I'm getting at is how this relates to pest control. Is that how would you kind of think about, like, when you put your hat on and say, well, this is my priority now, and this is why, and that is not my priority now, and that's why. And I'll give you an example. Like when we're out there selling maintenance software, like we often find it's a bit streaky. Like we'll get really streaky with a specific role and even region, but then nothing in other roles and regions with respect to, is this your priority, right? And it's getting very spotty. People ask us where we operate, and I'll say, well, we operate everywhere, because like it's not consistent. Even building the building, or even operating company, there's very inconsistent prioritization. How did you how did you establish your priorities that you were working on when you were at PM? And how did you cascade that down so that people knew what decisions to buy?
No. So, I mean, you got to read the room, right? You really need to understand who the true audience is, and whether it's a brand new construction or you're, purchasing a deal that's already stabilized. You're looking at so many different things, right? At the end of the day, the only thing that matters to investors is that bottom line. How do you get there? So it's really like understanding what potential issues that each property might have, or what are some wins that property can have. Where can you increase revenue? Where can you decrease spend? You're looking at things and this is me personally, right? In my experience, I'm looking at what's wrong here, how can we correct it, and what's it going to cost, and what's the feedback going to be from, I mean, the on-site team is probably some of the most important people in this whole like food chain, regardless of what anybody says. Without them, there would be no asset manager, there would be no regional, there would be no property management companies, there would be no investors buying anything. They're the most important people, and I think that we don't give them enough credit. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's really important to understand what it is that you're buying, right? I mean, literally lift the hood and look in it. It's just not, you can't just window shop anymore. There's a lot of hidden stuff that's going on out there that is going to be a big ticketed price if you really don't do your due diligence well on brand new construction or, you know, a pre-existing community. So it's really just, I mean, you have to ask the hard questions and hope that either you're knowledgeable and experienced enough to look at the things that you know you need to look at, whether it's maintenance and looking at the HVAC, the longevity, and were they treated? Is there, you know, documentation of when they were last you had preventative maintenance in the units? Those are all important things. And then on the back end, on new development, is how is your preventative maintenance going to look, and what does that entail, and what do you have going on, and what's that going to cost? So, I mean, it's looking at everything full picture of anything that is going to cost money. Where is it at today, and where could it be years from now?
So did you find, like, in your role as a PM, and were you guys fee managers or owner operators?
Both. I did both.
Yeah. So, like, one thing that as sellers, we kind of like, we kind of mix up is it feels obvious to talk about NOI to an owner or investor or an investment company or investor owner or operator owner. And that, well, it would also feel obvious at the fee manager level, but the problem with fee managers, the challenge with fee manager sales is that we also need to think about their net income. Right? Like, how does a fee manager make money? Because if I'm just talking NOI to a fee manager, I may not hit the button on their priority list, because NOI is something that is a function, not so much what their priority is, or maybe their bonus. So how would sellers think about selling to a fee manager versus selling to if I assume NOI hits with owners, what hits with fee managers?
I mean, it's basically the same, right? You hit it on the head. Is that bonus is tied to making NOI. So how do I get there? And what is a priority? And listen, the on-site team is constantly doing their financials every single month, getting their quarterly bonuses. And, you know, what can I take away from this line item? And, you know, oh, this is positive, let's move it down here kind of situation. So they're everybody's encouraged by having a positive NOI. Let's just, we all know it, right? Yeah. The investors are more worried about their return on investment, right? They want to get that quarterly distribution. What does that look like? So it all trickles back downhill of educating the on-site team, but being, very transparent in what they're managing. And if there is an issue, they shouldn't be dinged for there being an issue on site that might cause that line item to go negative. Like, we as asset managers, regionals and above should be a little bit more conscious of knowing that there's going to be on-site issues and being transparent with the investors, saying, hey, we didn't anticipate this, but there is an issue. Let's talk about it. And I think being transparent and having those open conversations with all levels from on-site, corporate to investor, et cetera, is very, very important. I think that would educate everybody of what's going on, and not have the on-site team working in fear. I can't, take care of this issue right now because there's no money. That's going to become a larger issue, and that's what you need to avoid. And that's one thing that, I would advise that regionals and everybody just really have that open communication with their on-site team. It's very important to be transparent. If there's an issue, let us work on it to avoid the issues that are going to be created if you hide it or just, dismiss it.
Yeah, like the things that you hear about is like, let's talk about like August as an example. August is a busy month for maintenance and move outs and turns and stuff like that. You hear a lot about fluffing invoices the next month. You hear a lot about what can I do to move things around, like, almost like the 3-card Monty. But it's like, it's a bit of a card game happening at the property management level to make sure the numbers work, or taking away from capital budgets so they can spend it on operations, right? So, oh, we're not going to do the boiler this year. My favorite one is we had a leak. The boiler had a leak, so we're not going to do the capital boiler this year. We're going to repair the boiler. It's like, well, you had a leak. Like you can't keep punting on this, right? But the things like that keep happening. And it's interesting you talk about pest control pest control, like you get into, there are root cause elements that can be capital related that are discovered when you're doing a remediation. And that's like something that is not, it needs to either go into this year's budget or next year's budget, and you got to figure it out.
And I mean, big picture, right? I mean, you have termite issues, moisture issues. You have all these different issues that you can't anticipate. If anybody can sit here and say, oh, we anticipated the roof, a tree falling on the roof. I mean, you could be preventative. You can trim the limbs back from the roof, but you never know what's underneath the ground unless you're doing this massive, like, preventative maintenance program around all the trees in the community, right? So you just never know. So you should be a little bit more prepared when it comes to the underwriting or the budgeting for the year, or really like paying attention to the maintenance team. They're out there, they're boots on the ground. They can tell you where the issues are. And, my managers luckily have always had great relationships with their maintenance team, because it's important to make sure that they're taken care of when doing budgets, and it rolls up, right? And those are the conversations you have to have. But at the reality of it is it is what it is. You got to fix the problem, or the residents can move out. Yeah.
And that's really what we're feeling right now, is that, like, that retention conversation. I was talking the other day about, I feel like we're going to have a rush of promotions in the operations space or facility space, because if I'm a buyer, this kind of ties your conversation all together. If I'm an investor, and I'm choosing a fee manager, I want to know who's operating this building, because I'm not going to be snowed by the charm or the whatever of the sales team any longer, because that doesn't help my retention.
Right.
And so you talk about pest control, you talk about all these things that form a composite of the resident experience. And if you have a high degree of certainty that there's going to be a pest issue, generally speaking, or a pest expense item in this complex or this property, then I should be planning for that, because ultimately I want to acknowledge that is a probability, and I want to plan for it, I want to underwrite for it, and I want to be able to respond to the question that the investor is going to have to that fee manager around, how am I want to buy you XYZ PM, and but I'm not going to buy you unless you tell me, show me who's operating these things and how are you going to deal with these problems. So I think that's where we're getting at right now, is where the competition for fee management has reduced the margins significantly. And then the investors, the buyers of these buildings, the owners, they're now being much more critical or much more astute around what they're buying from a fee manager perspective. So every single line item is going to come under scrutiny. And if you are an operations person that can speak to a owner that's choosing, I think you're going to have a big opportunity this year in 2026, because you're going to be a very valuable commodity that can talk to the operations functions, talk to how that adds value to the buyer, the owner, and being able to put yourself in the room for those sales conversations, so that you can, they can represent what's actually going to happen. Because to your point earlier, it's all about retention this year. Next couple of years.
And there's listen, everything is relationship driven, right? And there's nothing more important than me sitting across the table from you and telling you why I feel this and what the needs are to make your asset, make money, or what you need for your investment to, be really good. Am I always right? Absolutely not. Am I passionate about, my thought process and my experience in the industry? Hell yeah. I love this industry, and I'm super excited to work with my peers from another side. And I'm also very grateful that my peers know the secrets, right? We know that line item is moving constantly, and it isn't what you say it is when you're doing a budget. We know that. But I think the bigger conversation is, let's be transparent about what that looks like. If you think that PestShare may be a little bit more expensive than what you're currently paying, let me prove to you why we're not more expensive than what you're paying. Let me prove to you what you are truly paying. And Gisha, when I tell you it is an eye opener,
Yeah, I
my
bet.
first week I was like, we're not more expensive. We're less expensive. We're providing this exceptional customer service. We're on demand providing this service for a resident. There was all these yes, yes, yeses. And the reality of it is listening to some of these calls, it's just like you can expose the reality of what the true cost is. And I think that's that's the conversation, whether it's maintenance or, preventative maintenance or changing out HVACs. I think it's very important. Let's have the true conversations of what ties into that actual issue all together, not looking at the line item, what expenses ties to that actual subject that you're having an issue with.
So Adrian brought this point. Now we'll talk to this in a second, then transition to kind of wrap things up. But like, how do you find you're selling into the corporate function for a vendor, a corporate vendor, bring maintenance along the way? How do you find that conversation goes? Like, given your experience in every single role up and down the vertical, and then getting into maintenance, like, what is maintenance's opportunity in 2026 to be able to bring themselves into those conversations?
Yeah, I think it's very important to get maintenance feedback. At the end of the day, they see absolutely everything. They're the ones that are talking to the residents. They're in there doing the work orders. They hear and see stuff. Listen, when you have a great relationship with your on-site maintenance team and that partnership is really built, you have a strong, solid foundation from the property management perspective. And that shows like just a great results all across the board. There's nothing more than we dream of than having this dream team that all gets together and it's the family unit, because guess what? They all work hard for each other and the conversations are flowing. Where if you do have these issues where the property manager doesn't like the maintenance team, etc., or they're always, pointing out the bad, there's going to be huge misses. And at the end of the day, like, guess whose fault it is? The property managers, no matter what, because you should have caught it. So I think it's very important to pull maintenance into these conversations. I think it's very important for maintenance to be heard. I think that it's very important for managers to be able to have these open conversations with the regionals. And I think it's very important for a regional to hear the on-site team. At the end of the day, they are there. They are seeing this going on. Regionals will stop by and visit a couple of weeks and have the, your one-on-ones or whatever weekly. But like, they're the ones that are really representing the property management team, boots on the ground, right? And I think it's very important that the top dogs pay attention to the people that are doing the work.
Do you think there's a gap these days between what's happening on site and what's the top dog level?
Yeah, I think it varies, right? Depending on level and like the overwhelmingness of like how many, apartment communities is one regional overseeing? Are they overwhelmed? Is the property manager a multi-site manager? Are they able to really function with focusing on the day-to-day operations of the needs of the property? Like, those are huge conversations that need to be had. And it's, listen, when I was a leasing agent, I got paid pennies and you better believe commission was I had to make 7, leases every single month to pay for my additional bills, and things have changed. And I think that those are other conversations that need to be had. And I think it's important to stay on track of like what those relationships look like and why it's so important for the top dogs to really understand their on-site teams. I've had owners of property management companies that would come on site and he would have this card in his pocket and you had to know the company values and he'd give you $100 bill right there to incentivize you of like, I'm proud to be here. I want you to know where we stand and what the vision is. And I think that, we're getting back to it for sure. But I think that big picture, we need to be proud of our teams and what they do and how they service us, but we also have to be available to them as well and make time for them. And if you don't have the time to make for your team, they see that. When
they leave, they'll just choose to leave because
right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's and just a different life. Like, I think all wages being the same, there's different careers out there that offer different, I'll say, paths, right? And depending on the person, it could be more or less attractive. Yeah. And so, but there are choices is the point.
Right.
And so given that there are choices out there, it's important to keep that site team engaged, right? Feel like they're part of they're valued in terms of their input and fulfillment, and that we're helping them, not making their life more complicated.
Yeah, no, for every position as a resident, why did they choose us to live here? Let's show
Sure.
them why. For an employee, from a company's perspective, they chose to work with us. Let us show them why. From an investor owner, property managers, they chose us. Let's show them why. These are things, I mean, listen, I can sit here and talk about my professional career, but these are things I live by in my personal career. Why are they my friends? Why have they been around my life for 30 years? Is because we truly value the same type of like lifestyle, living, family bond unit. All that stuff is very, very important. And I think it should be passed on to your professional life as well.
Totally. So that's a good transition to the piece of advice you'd give yourself when you first started, or even someone that's just joining PestShare, or maybe someone who used to be a Trilogy. What kind of advice would you give yourself? I mean, we got a lot here.
Stop, right? Don't stop. Listen, I've done some speaking engagements, and I think people were a little bit, thrown off when I said, I don't have this fancy degree on my wall. I do not. I worked hard for every single position that I received. And it's not because I have a degree on, hanging on the wall. It's because of my hard work ethic and my relationships that I've had over, the 26 years now of being in the industry. And they're very, very important. I can remember absolutely where I met you, what we did. Just recently at IMN, I had a run-in with one of my peers from our leasing days. And when I tell you our embrace was like 15 minutes and I was crying, and people were probably like, what is
I believe it. I believe it.
It was absolutely amazing because there's so many memories that we build. And you're right, our industry is small. Everybody knows everybody. But the important thing is be relationship driven, right? Don't ever give up. And I think that that's one thing that I've never done is I'm not going to give up. I feel like I've been kicked down and what next? And it seems like everything always happens for a reason. I'm a true believer of things happen for a reason and people come in your life for a reason. And I think PestShare came into my life at the right time. And I'm like super duper excited about it.
So is it a don't stop, or is it a resilience like piece of advice?
I think it's kind of both.
Or just believe in yourself, like, because you believe in yourself.
I truly believe in myself. And it's so funny, even for when my daughter was little, we always told her, you can do anything you put your mind to. And I'm a true believer of that. Like anything that you want, you can achieve. If someone has it, you can get it. You might have a different obstacle ahead of you or a different way of getting there. But truly, if you believe in yourself and you know what you have in you and you got that fire, and, they like to tell us Latin women that we're feisty and we're, passionate. Listen,
Yes.
on and on. Listen, it goes on forever. I am raising now an adult daughter, and it is very important for her to see it doesn't come easy. You got to work for it. And especially now, given the circumstances and the times of the world, like, hey, you are one of many. You're you're not a unicorn anymore. There's many of like yous out there. So you just got to give it your all and be yourself, be authentic.
Yeah, I do like the both of those working together though, right? It's like be yourself, be authentic, but don't stop, right? Like the talent and grit don't always travel together, but grit doesn't beat talent like all the time. And so like it's important to be able to kind of like activate what you've got inside you from a don't stop perspective, because that'll drive your outcomes.
Sure.
That'll drive your habits around outcomes versus just being lucky along the way. Yeah,
no, for sure. I'm not getting any younger, so I'm sure my energy is going to die down here soon. So I got to keep on going.
I'll bet against that. We'll see. Who should we have? Well, we'll see. I know my grandmother was still swimming every day, and she was 95 years old. So I don't bet against Latin women. It's a bad bet.
Yeah, that's how you do it. You got that right.
Tell me something. So who should we have on the show next? Who should we be chatting with next?
Yeah. So you had a lot of questions about the property management, fee management perspective.
Yeah.
So again, I've been in this industry a long time, and I was with the Worthing companies for a little over 10 years. And, back then, if I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have said, oh my gosh, it's like ran like this and it's so militant. But they set me up for success in my professional career. And two women that were there are mentors to me currently. So I would say Tracy Bowers with Gallery Residential is probably somebody that would be very inspiring to have. And
Amazing.
also Mark Howell he was leasing agent turned into trainer extraordinaire with Howell Concepts would be another great, looking at it from a different perspective, right? What, as a property managing partner at a property management level, and then as a trainer dealing with the day-to-day nuances and how to help people get through the times of our industry would probably be two great people I would recommend for sure.
Oh, I'd love to have them both on. We'll reach out. We'll tag them both in the show. And so they'll be served notice. They'll be them down for the next year. Well, this has been outstanding. I think there's like the journey for starters. I mean, I think what's interesting about what the Getting to Hell Yes is that it isn't like pest control is the vehicle by which you solve the problem. It's not like pest control. It's everything around it. It's the underwriting, it's the approval, it's the quality, it's the speed, it's the resident experience. All those things are, facets of what ultimately creates a renewable renter. And all that has to become economical at the underwriting level with no surprises or limited surprises. And so when you talk about the problem that you solve, it really isn't, I've got ants inside my unit. It's all those things about running the unit and mitigating the surprises, right?
That's right.
And so if we can, a no surprise operation is a good operation to run.
That's right. Full transparency. You got that open communication is going to be key, and you're going to build the trust of your investor. You're going to build the trust of your corporate employees. You're going to build the trust of your on-site team, and you're definitely going to build the trust of your residents. So it's very, very important to have that open lines of communication and transparency for sure.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much today, Gina. Thank you everyone for listening today. Thanks for the comments, Greg, Adrian, and those that are listening today on the live show. If you catch this on the after the live and any comments in there, Gina and I will get notifications and we'll jump in and chime in. If you need to get a hold of Gina, best ways through LinkedIn.
Yeah, or you can email me, gdavis@pestshare.com. Be more than happy to schedule a quick demo, kind of show you behind the scenes of what we do and what platforms we have to offer you.
Amazing. Yeah. And everyone who's listening on the podcast, same story as before. If you could like, favorite, and subscribe, those are such great ways for everyone to hear these Cat2 shows. They'll follow along and learn along with everybody else. Gina, it's been outstanding today.
Thank you so much. Gracias.
Feliz Navidad. Happy holidays, everybody. And thank you, everybody, for listening in. And take care. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao.